The belief in the construction of the third Jewish temple is held by both Jews and Gentiles, who see it as a significant step towards the coming of the Messiah. Christians, on the other hand, have been eagerly awaiting the return of Jesus to lead them to heaven. However, before these momentous events can occur, there are numerous signs and prophecies that need to be fulfilled. The construction of the third temple holds immense religious significance for believers. The temple represents God's presence among His people, symbolized by the Ark of the Covenant that was housed within its walls. Throughout history, the temple has served as a place where God has revealed Himself to His people. It is also seen as a symbol of national security, as it was believed that the temple would be indestructible due to its importance. Any activity taking place at the temple attracts widespread attention, and recently, something unexpected occurred at the holy site in Israel that shocked religious individuals. To discover what transpired, it is crucial to watch the entirety of this video. Before delving into the mystery surrounding this place, let's tackle a small challenge. Can you answer the following question? During whose reign was the first temple in the Israeli Bible constructed? Was it A. King Saul, B. King Solomon, C. King David, or D. King Hezekiah? Take your time to ponder. The correct answer is B. King Solomon. The first temple was built during the reign of Solomon, David's son, and was completed in 957 BC. King Solomon erected the inaugural Jewish temple on this mountaintop around 1000 BC, only to witness its destruction 400 years later by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar's troops. As a result, many Jews were sent into exile. In the 1st century BC, Herod expanded and renovated a second temple that had been constructed by the returning exiles. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus Christ confronted the money changers in this second temple and was later crucified a short distance away. In AD 70, the Roman general Titus sought revenge against Jewish rebels by sacking and burning the temple. Today, the Temple Mount, located within Jerusalem's Old City, is home to two magnificent structures, the Dome of the Rock to the north and the Al-Aqsa Mosque to the south. In the southwest corner stands the Western Wall, a remnant of the Second Temple. For centuries, the Jewish people did not possess their homeland and were forced to wander as strangers across the earth. Deep within their hearts, there has always been a longing to return to their land and rebuild the temple. Jewish activists have been leading efforts for decades to change the status quo, advocating for religious freedom by questioning why Muslims are allowed to pray at the Temple Mount while Jews are not. In Matthew chapter, Jesus addressed his Jewish brethren, not the yet-to-be-formed Christian church. He warned them to watch for an abomination that would occur in the holy place. Jesus' disciples directly asked him about the signs of his coming and the end of the age. In response, Jesus enumerated numerous signs that would precede his second coming. He stated that the generation alive at that time would witness the fulfillment of these signs. The return of the Jewish people to their homeland after nearly 1900 years of exile is an unprecedented event in history. Furthermore, according to biblical prophecy, the Middle East will experience crises in the last days. Jesus proclaimed that the generation alive during those times would witness the fulfillment of these events. One of the most prominent end-time prophecies revolves around the construction of the Third Temple. This topic is currently a focal point in New Testament Bible prophecy. We are in the period between the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD and the anticipated construction of the Third Temple. Hardly a week goes by without some controversy surrounding the Temple Mount, as there are concerns that the Jews may rebuild their house of worship. The prophets of old declared that in the last days, the exiles of Israel would return to the promised land, and the restoration of the temple would be their greatest aspiration. In Ezekiel, the prophet foresaw the regathering of the dry bones of the nation of Israel in their own land. The passage also emphasizes that when God's sanctuary is among them forever, the nations will recognize His holiness. Throughout both the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, it is evident that God has never rejected His chosen people, Israel. Isaiah 41:9 states that Israel is God's servant, chosen and not rejected. Paul's letter to the Romans emphasizes how God has not abandoned his people. The return of the Jewish people to the Holy Land from all corners of the earth after 19 centuries of exile is a fulfillment of Isaiah 43:5-6, where God promises to gather his sons and daughters from the ends of the earth. While all these events unfold, preparations for the construction of the third temple are well underway. The timing of the rapture and the beginning of the construction of the Jerusalem temple are not explicitly connected in the Bible. However, it is understood that the resurrection must occur before the start of the tribulation, as Scripture indicates that by the midpoint of the tribulation, the temple will be built and defiled by the Antichrist. Additionally, the tribulation begins with a deceitful peace treaty between the Antichrist and the Jewish people, which could potentially initiate the construction of the third temple. However, these speculations regarding the timing are not definitive. The prospect of the third temple being built has become a significant topic in New Testament Bible prophecy. It represents a pivotal event in end-time prophecies. The current period we live in is characterized by the absence of the temple, following the destruction of the second temple. However, discussions and controversies surrounding the Temple Mount and the potential construction of the third temple frequently make headlines. Many believe that the rebuilding of the temple aligns with the prophecies of the Jewish exiles returning to their homeland and the restoration of the temple as a central focus for worship. The longing for the third temple among believers stems from the deep-rooted desire within the Jewish community to rebuild their spiritual center. This aspiration is driven by the belief that the temple's restoration will reestablish God's presence among his people and bring about a sense of holiness and unity. The prospect of the third temple serves as a symbol of hope and fulfillment for Jews worldwide. The construction of the third Jewish temple holds immense significance for both Jews and Gentiles. It is viewed as a crucial step towards the coming of the Messiah and the fulfillment of biblical prophecies. The temple represents God's presence among his people and serves as a symbol of national security. The return of the Jewish people to their homeland after centuries of exile has reignited the longing for the restoration of the temple. While the timing of the temple's construction and its connection to other end-time events remain speculative, the anticipation and discussions surrounding the third temple continue to captivate the attention of believers and scholars alike. The concept of the Antichrist compromising the peace agreement and defiling the temple by sitting in it and proclaiming himself as God is a significant aspect of end-time prophecies. According to these prophecies, the Antichrist will rise to power and take his seat in the temple 3.5 years into the 70-year period known as the tribulation. The temple, which must be rebuilt before the Antichrist's appearance, will be defiled by his action. However, the specific identity of the Antichrist will not be revealed until the Holy Spirit, referred to as the restrainer, is removed from the earth. This removal will occur when the church is raptured, which means believers will not know the Antichrist's identity while they are still on earth, but may witness the initial steps taken to fortify the Jerusalem temple. In recent years, there have been increased preparations and movements towards rebuilding the temple. The Temple Movement Project, initiated in the late 1980s, has been striving to prepare Israeli society to accept and promote the rebuilding of the temple. The Temple Mount Faithful, an organization dedicated to this cause, has been actively working on various temple-related items, including a portable altar for sacrifice. These efforts highlight the eagerness and anticipation for the Messiah's arrival, as a physical temple is seen as a significant element of the end times. While the construction of a physical temple remains uncertain before the return of Jesus Christ, the building of God's spiritual temple is of utmost importance. Believers are encouraged to be part of this spiritual temple, focusing on holiness, sanctification, and living in alignment with God's purpose. The events surrounding the anticipation of the third temple serve as a reminder for believers to remain vigilant, prayerful, and steadfast in their faith. The exact timeline of prophetic fulfillment cannot be predicted, but it should serve as a wake-up call for believers to be prepared and live with purpose, passion, and conviction. Throughout history, the temple in Jerusalem has been built and destroyed multiple times. The third temple is anticipated to bring this cycle to its conclusion, coinciding with the appearance of the Messiah. The expectation is that this temple will be eternal and never be destroyed. While the physical temple holds significance, it is essential to remember the core message of this event, which transcends ceremonial preparations. It is a powerful reminder of holiness, purity, and the call for believers to embrace these qualities in their lives as they await the glorious return of Jesus Christ. The possibility of the third temple being rebuilt has been discussed for over a decade. Temple activists have been holding Passover sacrifice reenactments and engaging in activities aimed at hastening the rebuilding of the temple. In the past, reviving temple sacrifices was seen as extreme and potentially inciting Muslim retaliation, leading to the denial of permits for such ceremonies. However, the attitude towards these temple preparation activities has been gradually changing. The police and the Jerusalem municipality now view these rehearsals as acceptable public events and an important aspect of Jewish culture. Even some mainstream media outlets have started accepting these activities as significant rather than fringe idea. The prophecies of the Antichrist defiling the temple and the subsequent events surrounding the third temple are part of ongoing history for those who believe in the Bible. Prophets like Daniel, Jesus, and the Apostle Paul all foretold the defilement of the temple and the rise of the Antichrist. Jesus specifically warned about the abomination of desolation, as mentioned by the prophet Daniel, and urged future generations to understand its significance. The Apostle Paul also spoke of the Antichrist opposing and exalting himself above anything that is called God, setting himself up in God's temple and proclaiming himself as God. Christian Bible prophecy scholars suggest that only a skilled diplomat accepted by both Jews and Muslims would be able to broker a plan allowing the Jewish people to worship in a temple on the Temple Mount. However, it is also warned that this dealmaker, known as the Antichrist, will eventually break the peace plan. The scriptures indicate that this peace agreement will be annulled, described as a covenant with death in Isaiah. The anticipation and preparations for the third temple serve as a reminder of the end times and the events prophesied to occur. While the specifics and timelines may remain uncertain, believers are called to remain faithful, prayerful, and focused on living according to God's purpose. The rebuilding of the temple, both physically and spiritually, holds significance in these prophecies, but it is vital to remember that being part of God's spiritual temple is of utmost importance. As believers eagerly await the return of Jesus Christ, they are encouraged to keep the flame of faith burning brightly and live with purpose, passion, and conviction. In the realm of Israeli organizations, there are several diligently preparing for the construction of a third temple. One of these notable organizations is the Temple Institute. Remarkably, all the necessary preparations for the third temple have been completed, except for one crucial aspect, the location. Since the liberation of the Temple Mount in 1967, there have been significant efforts by Arabs to claim the entire 37-acre platform, referring to it as the Noble Sanctuary. The Muslim narrative surrounding the Temple Mount has undergone changes over time. A visitor's guide to the area published by Muslim authorities in 1925, during the pre-state era, acknowledged that the territory was once the site of Solomon's temple. The guide explicitly stated that the identity of the site with Solomon's temple was indisputable. It is intriguing to observe that the Muslims affirmed the biblical history in 1925, which they now seem to be attempting to erase. Are significant developments on the horizon. Jerusalem, in fact, holds no particular religious significance for Muslims and is not mentioned in the Quran. Furthermore, some Muslim leaders who are part of the Abraham Accords have recently admitted that the Temple Mount truly belongs to the Jews and that Muslims should focus on their holy city of Mecca. In light of these evolving perspectives, it is fitting to invoke the prophetic words of Psalm The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. The rebuilding of the temple could potentially serve as a unifying force for the relatively young nation of Israel. Throughout its reborn existence, Israel has experienced a series of major wars. A house of worship, particularly a house of prayer for all peoples, as the first and second temples had been, could become a rallying point for Jews worldwide. This unity would not only help bridge the gaps among the various Jewish factions in Israel today, but would also reinforce the deep-seated belief among Jewish people that the redemption of all mankind is intertwined with the redemption of their land. When the Messiah comes, he will be the King and Savior of all nations. Now, let's explore the Dome of the Rock and delve deeper into its significance. Ignoring the ongoing debates, we venture inside the temple to uncover its contents. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, built around 690 AD, is believed by Muslims to be the place from which the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven on a winged horse. The main mosque, known as Al-Aqsa, is located south of the dome. The lower part of the temple is octagonal in shape, with a round dome above, following Byzantine architectural style. Built around 690 AD, the dome remains intact to this day. The dome was originally covered with tiles, but in 1964, the King of Jordan called upon the Arab world to fund the reconstruction of the roof with metal, plated with real gold on the outside. Centrally located under a 20-meter-high dome and surrounded by a wooden fence, lies the rock from which Muhammad is said to have initiated his miraculous ascension to heaven. According to the Quran, Muhammad pushed the stone down with his foot, leaving footprints on the rock, which are believed to be visible in one corner. The dome has become the most prominent symbol in the radiant sunshine of Jerusalem. Moving on, we encounter the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall. This wall, built by King Herod the Great in the early 1st century BC, stands on a section of the temple constructed by King Solomon nearly 3,000 years ago. During the Ottoman period, the wall became a place of pilgrimage, where Jews would gather to mourn and lament the destruction of the temple. That is why it is commonly referred to as the Wailing Wall, although many Jews prefer to use other names. After the battle with the Romans, the wall was destroyed, and today, only a short section of it remained. Jews of the past and present hold deep reverence for this wall, as it represents not only a historical relic, but also a source of national pride. As we navigate through these intriguing historical and religious elements, it becomes evident that we are living in the last days. Two pivotal events must occur before the arrival of the Antichrist: the construction of the temple and the confirmation of a covenant with Israel. The belief in the existence of a third temple is deeply rooted in Judaism. The solid construction of the Temple Mount by King Herod over 2 millennia ago and its preservation as a holy site by Muslims have kept the real estate ready for the commencement of construction. However, just as King David could not build the first temple, with the task entrusted to King Solomon due to wartime constraints, the third temple will not be constructed as long as it poses the risk of war, death, and destruction. Therefore, if concerns arise about a potential third temple, it is unlikely that it will be built at the expense of igniting a global conflict with the Islamic world. Moreover, there is a strong possibility that the temple, if constructed, would serve as a place of worship and prayer, rather than a site of violence and bloodshed. However, it is important to note that these speculations may not come to fruition within our lifetime. Nonetheless, it is awe-inspiring to witness history unfolding before our eyes. There is a captivating story behind the potential construction of the third temple, carrying deep prophetic significance. The chosen location for the ceremony aligns perfectly with the position of the former temple, indicating divine orchestration at its finest. God's intricate plan for mankind is unfolding in a manner that leaves us in awe of his wisdom and foresight. In order to replicate the biblical ceremonies, specific requirements must be met, such as the use of red heifers that are 3 years of age. The clock is ticking, and with each passing day, we draw closer to a momentous event with profound prophetic implications. The selected location for the ceremony aligns precisely with the former temple's position, and this alignment is not a mere coincidence but a testament to divine orchestration. As we contemplate the potential construction of the third temple, it is essential to approach the topic with caution and respect for different perspectives. While the idea of a third temple holds great significance for Judaism, it is crucial to balance these beliefs with the need for peace and harmony among different faiths and cultures. The future remains uncertain, and only time will reveal the unfolding of events. In conclusion, the preparations for a potential third temple in Israel are underway, with various organizations diligently working towards its construction. However, the exact location of the temple remains a matter of contention. The evolving perspectives among Muslims regarding the Temple Mount and the significance of Jerusalem add intriguing dimensions to the discussion. The potential construction of the third temple holds deep religious and historical significance for the Jewish people, and it could serve as a unifying force for the nation of Israel. However, it is important to approach this topic with sensitivity and respect, recognizing the complexities and diverse viewpoints surrounding it. Ultimately, the future of the third temple remains uncertain, and only time will reveal the unfolding of this captivating story.